You ever felt like it's too late to chase a dream? I did. But stepping back into the classroom after years away was a leap of faith and honestly a little terrifying. Join me as I share the raw, unfiltered experience of my first day of college, the challenges, the triumphs, and why it's never too late to invest in yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to the video. As you can see, today's a little different because you see my beautiful shiny face. Thank you for joining today. As you can see, we're going to be talking about going back to school as an adult. And I know that is probably not as uncommon as we think, because I know when I went to school the first time, there was adult learners in the classroom. Um, but it's not something that I've currently seen when I was doing my first semester at the school that I'm attending. So, yeah, we're just gonna kind of jump on in, kind of get our feet wet, talk about everything, all the feels, all the jitters, all the awesome things that happen, the beautiful people that I've met, and we're just going to jump on into it. Before I go ahead and start, I'm just going to ask you politely to subscribe down below, smash that like button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified anytime that we post a video. So let's jump on into it. So, as you saw in this first part, we're going to be talking about those pregame jitters. Going back to school is kind of crazy. I will say I am in my mid 30s, so not too far off, but you kind of wake up feeling like a high schooler on the first day of school at a new school, just transitioning from eighth grade to ninth grade, and all of those crazy feelings. But then you have a lot of added stress because you have responsibilities on top of that. I have a husband, I have pets, I have bills, I have other responsibilities, I have medical appointments to manage for me and my husband. So it can be a lot to kind of juggle. Um, there was always that interior thought, especially in the first few days, because the first 2 days of my classes, I had to miss because I was on vacation, and I was out of the country, so I didn't really have a choice because that was a prepaid vacation, and I was gonna miss it for the world, and it was also my honeymoon, even though it's, like, 7 years late, but still. So, jumping into class with these students, because I was entering school as a sophomore, a senior, but a sophomore in the program. So, like, all of these students had already kind of met each other. They knew each other from the previous year's classes. And, there was a lot of questions of like, can I do this still? Like, is my brain like functioning enough to go to college, especially nowadays? Am I, too old? Am I gonna fit in with all of these like, Gen Zers? Or, am I even like too old to go into a classroom? I will say, I am doing a secondary education degree with an emphasis in history. So I will be teaching at the middle school, high school level. I have currently leaned towards high school. So that's where we're kind of aiming or targeting the students. So, like, I was like talking to my teachers after class sometimes, like, am I too old to be in this program? Like, am I gonna be okay because I'm not as young and as sprightly as everybody else? And a lot of my professors actually told me like I have more experience and more wisdom behind me. So that's going to be an asset to have going into student teaching and being in the classroom with students. So that was really great to hear. Um, Another thing is kind of like I said before, like I'm a senior, but I joined the program as a sophomore because I I'm gonna age myself again. I graduated high school in 2008. I went to college the first time from 2008 to 2012, and I was going for music with an emphasis in composition. And then I left because I had like a lot of family problems, a lot of personal problems, and I was also having a lot of issues with students that were supposed to be performing for me dropping out of my recital. And that's like the main thing to graduate. And so left right before I graduated, which was very sad, but I did. And then I went to medical assisting school, got that certificate and diploma and certification, and started working in the medical field. Like I said, I have a lot of experience. But then, from 2012 to 2013, I did that medical assisting. And then I've been in the medical field up until the past 4 years. I've been working in IT, I've worked in payroll. So I have a lot of experience with different positions, but they're not student education backgrounds. But the reason I chose to go into education is because it's something I've always considered, and I love doing the training, or the, helping, like, my peers whenever they're learning new things, in the positions that I've been in. That's always my favorite part of the job, and then, of course, you have the job, and that's fine, but I just really like the training aspect, so education is very similar to that, and, I decided, like the past year and a half, that I wanted to go back to school and change my career path because I have some medical conditions to where I can't just sit behind a computer all day. I can't sit here for 5 or 6, 8 hours staring at a computer screen and just, dulling my eyes. I suffer from severe migraines. I have I have pressure in my head, elevated pressure in my brain. So it causes my migraines to be, I don't ever get just headaches. I just go like straight 0 to 60 migraine. And a lot of times they last like 3 to 5, 7, 9 days. Or there'll be 2 days and then I'll have a day off and then it'll come back and then it'll go away, and then it'll come back. And so it's a really nasty cycle, and being on my computer in front of a screen all the time, that really kind of triggers those things. So, when I sit here and I record, like that's easier because a lot of the videos that I record, I'm doing Lego. So I'm looking down, I'm not really doing anything, and the camera's not on me. But whenever I'm doing something like this, it's different. But I'm also looking at the camera. I'm not looking at my computer screen that's below it, so it's not really affecting me as much. So, yeah, that's kind of just the beginning. We're gonna kinda jump into the next little section, and we're gonna whoop right on up there. So I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but there wasn't much of a culture shock because I have been in the working field for since I basically was in high school, but I've been working a lot with people who are younger than me, so there wasn't much of like a culture shock. But navigating the school and, like, navigating the fact that everything's online was really crazy to me. When I went to college the first time from '08 to 2012, the, um the books that we had and everything was like a book, like a book. We didn't have, like, digital books. So everything that we had was something I could physically touch. I could use a highlighter and highlight everything. So that was definitely very different when coming to school nowadays versus back then, is that everything's digital, everything's on your computer besides a few things. So that was kind of crazy. And then, just, navigating the school. Thankfully, I go to like one of the main schools in my state, and then like there's like smaller campuses around the state, and I go to one of those smaller campuses. So while I don't go to the big campus, like the main campus, I go to one of the smaller, so it's much easier to navigate. So that wasn't really too hard. But in the classroom, like, there is always, like, that feeling of, like, being the parent because most of the students in my classes are almost half my age. I think, Um, some of them are 20, but a majority of them are 18 or 19, or 19 turning 20. So, and I'm 30, 35, about to be 36 in a few days. So there a lot of them really are like half my age, which is crazy because like totally different generation. But there's like always like you pick up on things. Like I'm a quiet person. I sit like in the middle back of the room. I don't, I didn't really talk too much. I didn't like really come into like friendships with my classmates very fast. We're always forced into like group projects, but I was very blessed with the few girls that I did really form a bond with this semester, and they're all, like, really, really extremely nice and understanding, and they always, just made had a way of making me feel like just one of the girls with them, not like this older person that was hanging out with them. Like, they always included me in things that they're talking about or whatever was, the hot goss. I just wanna throw that in there. But yeah, I was super, super blessed with having amazing classmates, and they were all really friendly and welcoming. Um, a lot of them didn't know I was in my 30s though, so that was great. So like that was really fun. Um, and then kind of just like jumping into the next section. So like there wasn't really like I would say an initial shock of classes because while it has been over 10 years since I've been in a classroom, like, I know what school is, and I have always had, like, um, an obsession with school supplies. I love classrooms, like, being in the classroom, like, that was, one of my favorite things was being in school, being in college, going to my trade school whenever I did. That was, like, always something that I had the best time doing. So there wasn't really, like, a shock of that, but like I mentioned, like, the online class thing and, like, digital books I don't know why I'm doing this, but because they're online classes, but, like, having that part of the school, that was something that was, like, unknown, so it was, like, kind of tricky navigating. Thankfully, I'm a really fast learner, so that was a positive, and I didn't really have to, struggle with any of that, and, I just had to make sure, like, while, there might not be any, like, external struggles with, like, attending the classes, doing the classwork, navigating Canvas, like, to turn in assignments, there is, like, the internal struggle of, like, managing my medical stuff, making sure that there's food on the table, making sure my husband doesn't feel neglected, my animals don't feel neglected, I'm not neglecting myself, like, making sure that all the things are taken care of, outside of schoolwork because I am a full-time student, so I do have 6 classes, so I have a lot of work that has to be done. So that's always a little struggle, maintaining my medical appointments outside of class and all of that is just, um, something to consider. But, I think it just depends on where you are, who you're around, and who you're with as to like the impact that it makes. I like how my thing is on a commercial. That's funny. But we're just gonna ignore that. We'll just easily go "Bloop." But, yeah, so just, making sure that, you don't, like, seclude yourself because that's not gonna help. And it really does help having friends or, peers that you can, bounce ideas off of and relate to in order to making sure, like, you understand things or if you have a group assignment, making sure that you're able to communicate okay, like having everybody's people's numbers, like that's really important. Um, because if you don't have that and you're doing it all by yourself, like sometimes, the teachers have too much going on, or even if they have TAs, sometimes they don't respond right away, or they may be too busy, they might miss the email. There's always things. We are human, and so we do error and we're not perfect. So that's something always to consider. So, looking on like my class schedule, I had this semester, I had 3 in-person classes and I had 3 online classes. So thankfully, like I had morning classes and then I had a break and then I had one afternoon class and then I was able to go home because my other classes were online. I will say, like, I did spend quite a bit of time in the library. I find, like, while I do have, like, my own, like, little separate section that I can, sit in, I have my own computer, like, I have a printer, like, I can do all the things at home. It's just easier for me to, like, study at school. And then plus, like, if you have peers that are on campus, then it just kinda makes it easier for you to, like, text them, ask for help, or, just let them know, like, if you have a project, like, "Hey, I can stay on campus," and that kinda thing. Because while I do live off campus, and I am, like, 45 minutes away from my campus, like, just having that ease of access of the library and all the resources and being able to be like on a desktop computer that's like a little bigger helps me personally because of my medical conditions. So like just being able to have that like break in between classes and outside of the house helps to, like, reassure you as to, like, why are you doing this? Like, you always wanna remember your why, and I think that's being, someone going into education, that's something that's, like, really kind of talked about is, like, remember your why. Why are you gonna be a teacher? Why do you wanna be a teacher? Like, why are you doing this? And I think considering, like, how many people are leaving teaching and where teaching's kind of at right now in the world, like, that's something that you really have to, ingrain in yourself because, like, you can't do this job for money. There are a lot of states that pay really well, but there's a lot of states that don't pay the best, and, you just have to make sure, like, you know your why, and that's just really important to not just being a teacher, but also like getting you through those hard days, those difficult, long projects, those really long papers. Like in history, that's basically all it is. It's reading and writing. So like, you have to reflect and keep reminding yourself of the why of why you're doing this. What are you gaining from it? What are you gonna be doing in the future? And all of those reasons and, reflecting, on your family, making sure you have the support that you need. All right, so we're going to be kind of like wrapping this up. This last section is just kind of the reflection, like a journey of the road ahead. Like, this is just the beginning. I just finished my first semester. I can report that I got 2 A's, 4 A pluses. So I do have a 4.0, thankfully. Yay, me. I'm very proud of myself for that because I stayed on top of things, did as much as I could early so I could stay on top of my other in-person classes that I maybe couldn't have. And, just remembering obviously your why, but also remembering like there's life outside of class. Like you can't 100% dedicate everything to being a college student, especially as an adult, like, you do have other responsibilities. So, like, on your drive home, making sure you're, like, clearing your brain of what happened at school that day or in class that day, and then going home and being present in the home. That is really why I choose to do a lot of my homework at school and in the library is because I wanna be able to be present and be home with my family, with my animals, and be able to have that relaxing time, that resting time, the downtime with my husband. So that way, you don't neglect the important things. And, just making sure, like, whenever you're doing your schooling, whether it's a private school or a publicly funded school, like, you just make sure, like, you stay involved. You don't have to necessarily be super involved with the school, like, outside resources or events. I will say I didn't really do much of that just because I do live off campus, and it's kind of inconvenient to drive almost an hour just to go to a 2-hour event and then drive an hour home. But making sure like you're present in your classes. You leave everything at home at home. Make sure you leave everything at school with school, obviously, unless you bring home your homework. That's obvious. Um, and then just, making sure like you know like while you're doing it. I hate to keep re-saying that, but it really is true. I watch a lot of educators on YouTube, and there are very few secondary education teachers on YouTube. Unless they're doing shorts, which is not like long, they're doing short form content, which is not the best for students. When I'm looking for teachers, like I'm looking for teachers that I can like look at how they're setting their classrooms up. I'm looking for like how they do their planning. I'm looking for like advice. I'm looking for like tips. We're looking for anything to help us make this transition easier, to make us feel a little bit more confident in our choice. I can tell you there have been so many times throughout this semester that I have like second guessed, why am I going into education? And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. Why am I going into history? Because that sounds complicated. Oh yeah, that's why. And I will say, like, one of my absolute favorite education YouTubers. Her name is Holly Adams. I will link her YouTube down below. She has great content and she shares so much, and it's amazing because there's not that many people out there who do that. And if you're going into like, she's a secondary math, if you're going secondary math, then there's so much help and so many tips that she has. Like, I've already written down like ideas for my class in the future that maybe not for secondary math because I'm history, but they could apply the other way. I can just take bits and pieces from people, and I think that's really important, is to be able to like, that's why I'm doing this, is to be able to share my experience to help somebody else out in the future. And that's really the important thing, is just, I love helping people and I love making sure that people feel seen and heard and understood. And while I can't do that for everybody in the world, just bits and pieces and sharing the little bit of knowledge that I have is what I plan to do with the rest of my life, is just sharing and educating and helping people out. So yeah, that is gonna be close to it for this video. I will have some more content coming up very soon, and I just kind of wanted to uh, update y'all. I've been gone for a while, and I wanted to come back with a bit of different content. Like I said, I was gonna, in my probably previous short, before all the Lego videos and my vacation came, like, I'm going to school. This is gonna be a new journey. Next semester, I'm super excited. And then I'll have 2 years left, and then I'll be an educator. So I'm super excited, super nervous. We have observations starting already, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of leave y'all on a great note. Like I said, I never thought I would be going back to college or changing my career in my mid 30s, and here I am. Some call it brave, some might call it inspirational. I call it a challenge because it is a challenge balancing everything. Not everyone gets this opportunity to go back to school to pursue something that they're passionate about. And I consider myself extremely fortunate to be able to do this. And the support that I have from my husband is extremely remarkable, and all of my external family and friends who support this journey. It has already been extremely rewarding, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds. I just want to give a special shout out to, again, Miss Holly Adams, who has been a great YouTuber to watch and see and get tips and ideas from. A special shout out to all the girls that I have made friends with and the guys from my classes. Y'all have been absolutely amazing and so kind. But I appreciate your friendship and your love and support. And to my husband, thank you. I love you. And I can't wait to continue on this journey. So we will catch y'all in the next one. I'll see y'all later. Bye.